This roster projects to be one of the better offenses in the league. The questions, though, are in a few areas. One being the guy we just talked about, Nasty Man, Deshaun Watson. What is he going to look like for a full year? Now they're paying him the real bread. Are they going to get a ROI on that contract? Can Deshaun Watson show them something that makes them forget the fact that they gave him fully guaranteed contract and became the ire of all NFL owners and front office executives? Deshaun Watson should be a top 10 QB. He certainly is one in pay scale. But is he still one in ability? Well, when you look at who they have acquired, when you're talking about Elijah Moore, when you're talking about, well, Marquise Goodwin, not necessarily, but Elijah Moore is a really important piece for them. I think getting Cedric Tillman in the draft is an important piece for them. He's a big body. He's a guy that can go up and go get it. I think Cedric Tillman is somebody you can really do a lot of good things with if used properly. If we go into the depth chart, this is what we're looking at for the Cleveland Browns. Also, the biggest addition might be Jim Schwartz on defense, and we'll get there in a little bit. But if we're talking about Amari Cooper, DPJ to me is still a question mark. There's been a lot of people trying to sell me on him. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of articles that are very high on DPJ. I just can't justify it at the moment. I think Elijah Moore steps in there and becomes very dynamic because the one thing they like to do with Amari Cooper is the number one, wide receiver number one. He is the Y. They use him hellas in the slot. So they move Amari Cooper around to scheme him open. That now means you got either Elijah Moore or DPJ on the outside trying to get open vertically. I like that a lot more with Elijah Moore than DPJ, but I have people telling me, and I've been reading and people that I trust listening to their podcast saying DPJ could be one of those guys that could take a step. I'll believe it when I see it. The strength of this team is the offensive line. As much as we could talk about Nick Chubb and how great he is, and he is top tier, he could run in any formation. This team had a lot of struggles with Deshaun Watson under center. He's not used to that. He's used to performing out of the gun. He's used to performing in 11 personnel. He did that damn near exclusively in Houston. Now, last year, they had him under center, and you could tell it looked like something he wasn't comfortable with. Now, do you run that back and assume, well, shit, you've now have had a whole offseason, a whole training camp to get comfortable under center? Or do you mix in some of the shotgun stuff, some of the 11 personnel stuff that made him appear to be ascending to top tier QB mode with Houston? Do you mix in some of that now if you're Cleveland? I think you have to. And I think that's why they were trying to make sure that they get better at the wide receiver position in trading for Elijah Moore and then going out and drafting Cedric Tillman, because they do want to go 11 personnel a hell of a lot more than they did last year. So I like the fact that they're investing in that, and I don't think that'll be a hit to Nick Chubb. I don't think that'll be a hit at all to Nick Chubb, because whether it's shotgun, he ran well out of shotgun, and he obviously ran well in 21 and 22 personnel as well. So Nick Chubb can run in any formation, and that's because of how great Nick Chubb is, and that's because of how good his offensive line is. So I have no worries about this offensive line. So we're giving Nasty Man Deshaun Watson a really good offensive line, arguably top 10. You can even sell me on top 5. A top 10, top 5 offensive line with a real number one receiver that they move around to scheme him open. A legitimate top tier running back in Nick Chubb, and someone in Elijah Moore who I'm not saying he can flash and be, a 1B or a 1A to Amari Cooper, but he can certainly play the part of being a 2 or 3. And then Cedric Tillman, I think there's definitely sets where you could use him, thinking fade routes, where you could take advantage of his big body. Pause. So I like the Browns a lot on paper, but it's similar to the Ravens. We haven't seen it in actuality. We haven't seen all these pieces at their peak. And that's where, to me, it's like, okay, we can project the hell out of this, or we can just play it safe and just assume they're just going to be mid because of how good the Bengals and Ravens are supposed to be. The Browns' offense looks like a playoff team. The Browns' defense, however, leaves a little bit to be desired. But I do like the addition. They were horrible against the run. They were absolutely putrid against the run last year, and they went out there and made some investments. Tomlinson, I like a lot in the middle. And he went out there and got Zadarius Smith as well. But Tomlinson is the one to me. Now, we know what Myles Garrett, he's all world. I think there was a stat Mina Kimes had, and I think she said he faced the most double teams of any pass rusher in the league last year. I think she said it was like 30%. It was like 30%, okay? So he's got help now on this line. Now, Zadarius Smith, he's not going to get double teams, but he could do damage one-on-one to where you might not have to double. You might still want to, it might have to chip. I mean, at least chip on Garrett every play. But you might not just say, all right, as long as we double Myles Garrett, we'll be fine. Zadarius Smith can get home. Tomlinson could be a disruptor in that middle. Now, the rest of this defense is a lot of inconsistency here. But now we're bringing in Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz on this defense, schemes should be changed. Jim Schwartz defense are normally very aggressive, blitz happy. They like to apply pressure. That means DBs are on an island. And while Denzel Ward has certainly looked to be the guy at times, I don't know. The consistency for Denzel Ward is the issue for me. Now, he's battled through some injuries as well, so I can't blame it all on him. He certainly has not, I wouldn't call him an underachiever. It's just at times he's looked to be a true number one DB and a top tier one. And then at times he has not looked like that. So with Jim Schwartz switching to a 4-3, and I'm assuming unleashing hell like he has in his prior stops as a DC, it's going to be sink or swim for people like Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward needs to be the guy. And while in years past I've liked him, right now it's Myles Garrett and a bunch of dudes. But I do like Tomlinson. I like Zadarius Smith. I like Tomlinson a lot. Linebacking core to me is mid. But the DBs is where they're going to have to sink or swim. And I'm not that confident right now to think that they can swim. Because, again, another question mark. Because we have the offense where the offense looks the part. On paper, this looks to be a really good offense. Great offensive line. You have your number one receiver. You have a top-tier running back. And you have a QB that has been top 10 not that long ago. This should be an offense that should be feared. But will it? Then you go down to the defense. Any defense that has Myles Garrett, you got to give him a chance. But they were so putrid against the run. But now a new scheme, a new DC, they have brought in interior line help that I think will actually pay dividends. But we still got question marks in this defensive backfield. So offense is a question mark because we haven't seen it. Defense is a question mark because while there's been some upgrades, we don't know how much of an upgrade it actually is. That, to me, in a nutshell, is what it is for your Cleveland Browns. So over under for the Cleveland Browns, 9.5. The under is getting the juice there. Excuse me, the over is getting the juice, but the under is the favorite and a pretty substantial favorite. That's an early bye week, bro. Week 5? Remember that for those fantasy drafting Nick Chubb and Amari Cooper. Got a week 5 bye week. Okay. Bengals, Steelers. So a lot of division games early for this. God damn. They play all 3 teams in the. Well, we'll know early about the Browns. God damn. We'll know early. They playing the whole division in the first month. And they got Tennessee. At least it's home games, but damn. This is a rough start. It's going to be sink or swim early. Then off the bye week, you got the 49ers at the crib. So the home schedule, they get a lot of home games early. That could mean things later when they're always on the road. So we'll look for that. 49ers, Colts, Seahawks. Okay. This schedule. Where's the road games on this schedule? They sandwiched all the road games. This is a weird schedule, bro. Week 5 bye week. Indy on the road, Seattle on the road, Baltimore, Denver, LA, Houston. Yeah, this is a weird ass schedule. Do they have enough road games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 road games. Okay, so they got, well, it's hard to do it with 17 games now. You can't really balance it out. Okay, so 1 more home game than road game. It's interesting, though, because I feel like looking at this schedule on paper, what was the number? I think I'm taking it over. It's hard for me to see the Ravens go over, but looking at this Brown schedule, I think there's more winnable games here. But this start is brutal. Bengals, Steelers, Titans, Ravens. If you can survive that, if the Browns come out of this 2-2, I think they can hit the over. But if they're 1-3, it might be a wrap for that. You want to come out of this 4-game start, 2-2. I don't see 3-1 here. I don't see 3-1 here. Barring injuries on one of these teams, I don't see 3-1. But if they can get 2-2, I like their chances of hitting that 9.5 on the over.